Hello, Aubrey. What's shaking?
I'm great. How are you, Lindsay?
I'm feeling really good today. Lots of energy. What are we getting into
Nice.
today?
Well, I have a question to start us out. When you say goodbye to someone who's driving, do you say drive safe or drive safely?
Honestly, I usually say drive safe.
Me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Is that a
is
problem?
this grammatical?
Uh, Sometimes when I say it, actually, no, to be honest, I don't even think about the
I don't
fact that
either.
it's not technically grammatically correct. I just say it because it's
I
what
just
native
say it.
speakers say.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
almost more idiomatic. It's a chunk, very accepted, but grammatically
Hmm.
it should be drive safely. But I actually
Hmm.
would feel strange saying drive safely. And the person they might think it's a grammar mistake because all
Yeah.
they've ever heard is drive safe.
Yeah. I mean, I would say I do hear native speakers also saying drive safely. I think this is one of, in my opinion, we could
It
maybe
depends on the
disagree.
region. Here, it would be weird,
Depends on
and
the
where I grew up, I
region.
think people would be like, "What?" But in a lot of
Ah.
places in the United States, they probably do say drive safely, or depending on a person's love of grammar or just what their parents said growing up, like, there are all kinds of
Mhm.
factors that might affect this.
I love that. Yeah. So both are okay, but regional, it's a personal choice. So this is what we're going to get into today. Aubrey, what exactly are we talking about today?
Right. Flat adverbs. So this came up recently where I said real quick instead of really quickly. This is very common in my regional dialect.
Yes.
Accepted. No one sees it as a mistake, but
Right.
it is a mistake, right?
Mm.
Grammatically, the correct way to say this would be really quickly. I need to do this really quickly and add those lys for the adverbs.
Yeah, that is so interesting, right? This is the most real English episode that we've had in a while, although they're all real English episodes, but this one especially. Um,
Especially.
Guys, we want to remind you to subscribe to our app. But above all, if you're listening to the podcast anywhere, whether it's in the app or whether it's in Spotify or Apple Podcasts, we read all of your reviews. So, what I want to do is call out a couple of people that reviewed us this week in the Google Play Store. So for our Android app. So special thank you to Kajra, who left us a 5-star review. Amazing. Beal Estevam, another 5-star review. Intisar Kasare and Mohammed Infik. These are all incredible 5-star reviews. Guys, we want to know what you think about the show. So go over, tell us what you love about the show, tell us how we can even improve the show, or ask your episode question in your review. Right, Aubrey?
Yes, we love these reviews. We read them. It is meaningful to us to see those 5 stars, to
Yeah.
hear your kind words. It is validating and it helps give us that motivation to keep going, to keep making these amazing episodes for you. So definitely leave us a review wherever you listen.
Yes, 100%. Leave us that review. We'll try our best to call your name out loud on the show. So, Aubrey, let's get deeper into it. What exactly is a flat adverb?
Okay, so this is any adverb that has the same form as its corresponding adjective. It does not require adding that ly to function as an adverb that we see at the end of a lot of adverbs. So they are also known as simple adverbs or bare adverbs. A really
Hmm.
good example is fast, right? How would
Ah,
we use fast as an adjective in a sentence, Lindsay?
we would just say, this car is fast,
Right?
right?
We're describing the car. It's an adjective there, but it
Hmm.
doesn't change at all when we use it as an adverb. That car is going really fast. And
Mm,
in this case, we don't add an ly. Fastly is not a word. This
right.
is it's a flat adverb. Ly is not added. And so this can be a little confusing because the adjective and the adverb look exactly the same.
Yeah, that's confusing because some of these flat adverbs you would have kind of a choice, like what we said at the top of the show, right?
Right.
Drive safe, drive safely, depends on where you come from in the US. But with fast, you can't say fastly. It doesn't exist
It
at
doesn't
all.
exist, right? This
Yeah.
is not ungrammatical. This is correct grammar to say
Yeah.
the car is going fast, the car is fast. Adjective,
Hmm.
adverb, same form. Because of that, there is a native English speaker grammar mistake that is very accepted in many regional dialects, where
Uh-huh.
some adverbs that do need that ly, we leave it off, we
Yeah.
turn it into a flat adverb,
Yeah.
and this is just accepted speech.
Okay. I'm excited to learn more. So where do we go from here?
Yeah. Well, let's share some common flat adverbs where we don't add an ly, like
Okay.
late,
Yeah.
hard, fast, long, high, low, deep, near, and safe. And
Mm.
what's really tricky with a lot of these is if you add an ly, for many of them, it actually changes the meaning, and that word does exist in English, like lately, Hardly,
Oh.
right? Lowly, these have a totally different meaning. So if you make
Ooh.
that mistake of adding the ly when using it as an adverb, then we're actually going to create communication problems because it has a different meaning.
That's kind of a pro tip today for our
Yeah,
listeners, right? And that's fascinating that if we do accidentally try to be grammatically correct, right? We think we're being grammatically correct, it could be a totally different word. Oh my gosh.
exactly. This
Okay.
is so tricky. I'm really glad you guys are getting details about this. And as an FYI, if you ask the average native English speaker about flat adverbs, they will have no idea what you're talking about.
Sure.
This is more like deep grammar. Often they don't know the names of things, but they would be able to tell you which one sounds right to them, right?
Yeah, unless you go to like a grammar conference or something, right?
Yep, that's different. Then you're
Basically.
getting grammarians who know what flat adverbs are and they have
Who will
opinions
argue all day
about
in the
whether they're
bar about
good and
it,
have never seen
right?
them.
We're nerds, right? Love it.
Right.
What are some characteristics then of flat adverbs?
Yeah, so they don't usually end in ly. They're often used in colloquial expressions, either grammatically or ungrammatically. They're used to describe when and where something happened, just like any adverb, but they are
Mhm.
also adjectives. So that can be tricky.
Ooh,
Let's share a couple of them that are correct grammar, right? We said
okay.
fast. She walks really fast, used as
Yes.
an adverb here. What's another
Mhm.
one?
Or he got home late, or he got home really late, right? We can add
Exactly.
intensifier there.
And you would
Yes.
not say lately, he got home
No.
lately. No, that is very confusing because lately is a word that means recently.
Mhm. Yeah, we'd have to change the sentence. We're saying something completely different if we say lately,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. So sometimes native English speakers use flat adverbs ungrammatically in colloquial speech.
Okay.
In informal speech and writing, this is fine. This is very much accepted to use it without the ly. So some examples are drive safe. Very
Mhm.
common. You're going to hear it on TV shows, podcasts, and no one's batting an eye.
Absolutely not. Or write this down real quick. Or you can add a please there too. Please write this down real quick.
Yes.
Super natural and native
Yeah.
chunk. We say this
Or he
all the
always
time.
drives slow. Oh, he always drives
Mhm.
slow. It should
Yeah.
be slowly, right? Grammatically, but this because there are flat adverbs, we'll just drop the ly sometimes. Very colloquial speech. Or how
Yeah.
about be careful, those books will fall easy. And one I just heard
Mm.
yesterday was terrible. Someone said like, "Oh, I play terrible. I play tennis terrible."
Oh, that
They're
one makes me
so
cringe a
common.
little bit
That
more.
sounds a little strange to you, like, very
Yeah.
accepted in many regional dialects. I hear these often. Horrible,
Yeah.
terrible, they'll just, like, drop the ly.
Yeah, the terrible makes me cringe a little bit. For in my mind, I have a line with the even easy is a little. It makes me feel a little uneasy when I hear that one.
It's so
So
interesting how
it's
it depends
mhm.
on where you grew up, how your
Yes,
parents speak, what
yes,
has been pointed out to you, because even
yes.
native English speakers like myself who grew up somewhere where that's very common, maybe someone points it out to me or I start hearing it used
Yeah,
correctly and then we start feeling like, "Oh, that sounds wrong to me." So this
yeah.
very much depends on the region someone is in and how much they pay attention to language.
Yeah, I mean, zooming in on this one, be careful; those books will fall easy. Um, I would usually say, be careful; those books will fall easily. I do think it is. It's a regional thing. It's
Mhm.
what you were used to hearing as a child growing up. But the expression, nice and easy, right? Yo, just take it nice and easy. I
And
say
that's
that,
because
no
it's a
problem
chunk,
there.
right? There are
Hmm.
chunks where this will be an exception for everyone. Also, just take it easy. Take it
Take
easy.
it easy.
Really, it should be
Yeah,
take it easily. We would never
yeah,
say that because it's an idiomatic chunk. Nice and
yeah.
easy. Take it easy. Those,
Yeah.
even though it's incorrect grammar, it's an idiom. So it works.
Yeah. So it's kind of a personal choice. We have our lines. Like for me, I wouldn't say
Right.
the terrible one. What was the example? That one.
Terrible.
That
Like,
one's a
oh, I
line.
play tennis terrible.
No, no, no.
I
That
do
that's
that.
a line for me. I
You would
I
say
would I
terribly.
have to say terribly. Yes.
Yeah, and for
Um.
some, terribly would sound like you're putting on airs, like you're trying to
Really.
sound so
Okay.
polished and educated,
So
right?
it.
So it's very
Mm-hmm.
interesting. There's a lot that goes into this when regional dialects are so different. But
So
there
I.
are times when we should add this ly, right?
Well, that's exactly what.
Formal or
Yeah.
academic writing, native English speakers would not write easy. Those books fall easy. It would be easily because you are up
Yes.
leveling your grammar. When you're writing, you're sending it to a proofreader. And if you have those mistakes, the proofreader would change it.
Yeah, and I would even say this can be really strategic for our listeners. It depends on not just if you're writing formal academic. Let's take the easy example. Be careful; those
Hmm.
books will fall easy. You could even say if you're on the East Coast. I would say if you're in the Northeast, if you're in New York
Mhm.
City, Boston, Washington, D.C., on the Eastern Seaboard, most of the time, I mean, there are certain regions, right, Aubrey? Like there,
Absolutely. Where
what are
you're
people
going to
saying around
hear
you?
and
Yeah.
use easily, terribly, horribly. You won't hear this, it's not part of the colloquial language there.
No, no, it's just maybe a little bit more formal or a little more by the book. But
Right.
again, I just want to make sure to our listeners, like I would never say, be careful, those books will fall easy. So you guys can decide
Mhm.
what you want to say depending on who
And
you're
listen to what you're
around.
hearing, right?
Yeah,
Listen to what you're hearing people say to get an idea for what is part of their regional dialect. Easy is this. We want to point out the spelling here. When a word
hmm
ends in Y, it is often dropped and it becomes ILY, which is even trickier. You can't just add
yes,
LY.
yes,
So pay attention to the spelling there. And there
yeah,
are some that when in doubt with easy, horrible, terrible, when in
hmm
doubt, you could go with the correct grammar version because you may be around someone with like Lindsay who's isn't as familiar with that mistake, especially if you're in the Northeast. I think that's a good gauge
yeah.
of like which regions do this more often.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. That's so interesting. You
Yeah.
could also, let's say that you don't want to take something easily and turn it into easy. It just doesn't feel right for you.
Mhm.
You could just reword the sentence entirely, right? Be careful; those books will fall
Might fall.
easily. Maybe for some reason you feel self conscious saying that because it is grammatically correct, and it's maybe no one else is saying it grammatically correctly. You might say something else, Aubrey. How would you
Yeah.
reword that?
Yeah, you
How
say
would you?
like, "Oh, careful, those books might fall." Oh, careful.
Yeah.
You could even use a really impressive word. I like to
Mhm.
use the word precarious. Be careful, that's
Interesting.
precarious. Those books are precarious. That means they might fall easily, but is an impressive word. Use this if you're studying for IELTS. Band 9 word,
Definitely been
precarious.
nice. But that brings a question to my mind, right? So if we're in that scenario where we're hanging out with people who do make these mistakes and it's part of the culture, it's a more easygoing, laid back backyard barbecue type of culture, would you be okay instead of saying like you're avoiding saying it correctly, but you're throwing in a really high level vocabulary word?
It
Does that
very
does
much
that work?
depends on who I'm around, right? I have
Yeah.
a group of friends that are wordsmiths. They
Yeah.
love fun vocabulary, and I absolutely would throw it in. With a
Interesting.
lot of other friends who would maybe think I sound condescending or pretentious, then I would just say,
Yeah.
"Oh, those books might fall. Careful, those books might fall." And I would not use
Yeah.
that more impressive vocabulary because I don't hear them using it. I know they don't appreciate it as much.
Interesting. And then there's always the thinking for our listeners, if this grabs on, of be yourself. You know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
maybe you're destined to live somewhere else. Like it makes me think of Sweet Home Alabama. You know,
Mm.
in
Yeah.
the end, she ended up coming back to Alabama, but she felt she had a place in New York with a different
Mhm.
crowd, you know, and maybe that's a journey that you'll go on at some point. So there's a lot
Absolutely.
there, Aubrey, to unpack.
Absolutely. A lot of culture in this grammar. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We could talk for half an hour about this topic, Aubrey, but let's get into a role play, shall we?
Yes, let's do it. So you and I are on a softball team together and we are discussing our batting skills, our batting averages.
Okay.
I'll start us.
Interesting. All right. Okay. Mhm.
I'm running to the batting cages real quick. Want to come?
Nah. I've given up on improving that. I hit awful and I just have to accept it.
That's me with both hitting and fielding. I play terrible. That's why I need practice.
I've tried the batting cages and I'll hit pitches there easy, but then can't hit it in a game.
Well, I should go. I got there late last time and they were closed.
Yeah.
I hope
With
you guys are watching on YouTube. When I said I play terrible, Lindsay made a face like it
I
was
cringed. I
nails on a
cringed.
chalkboard.
Oh gosh, cringing. I
Cracks me
almost
up.
feel like we have to use a different accent and slow down if we're going to change these words a little bit in a sense, right?
You need to come visit my hometown in Idaho, Lindsay, because I have the same accent as where I grew up, but all of
Mhm.
these words absolutely would hear in this conversation just like this.
Oh, wow. Okay, interesting.
Sounds
So it
very
just
natural to me.
the US is so huge, right?
Yes,
It's
that's the
so
thing.
huge. And
Giant regions. Yeah.
that's why we built our course, The Connected Communicator, and we interviewed people
Yes.
in all different regions of the US. You can hear those accent differences, vocabulary differences. Let's go
Grammar
through it.
differences,
Let's go through
totally.
it real quick, Aubrey,
There
shall
we
we?
go. So the first one I said was, "I'm running to the batting cages real quick." And grammatically, this should be really quickly. Part of the reason we're dropping those LYs is we're speaking quickly. We're saving time. We do this a lot.
Yes.
We drop words, we drop syllables, and this, would be very accepted in many
Yeah.
regions.
If you're gonna ask people to do something real quick, you can't be speaking slowly, right? I mean,
Exactly,
we
right?
gotta
But I
move.
would never write this if I were writing a book, if I were writing an essay, a paper, I
No, no,
would
no.
write that really quickly or even extremely rapidly, right? I would try to up-level my
Or
language.
or even I would venture to guess, even in the same region, if you're in the capital city, if you're in a big city within that
Potentially.
region versus
Mhm.
going out into the countryside for, like I said, a backyard barbecue on a Sunday and people are
Totally, right?
relaxed,
It
like
depends on who you're around, how informal you're being, everything about the situation.
Nice. Okay. I'm struggling with this, but I'll say it.
So
I said, "Nah, I've given up on improving that. I hit awful and I just have to accept it." I wouldn't be able to say it,
you would
but
not say I hit awful.
no.
I hear this all the time, and it's often used intentionally to really emphasize how bad you are at something. Like,
Okay.
it would sound sort of overly formal to say, "I hit terribly. I'm
Mm,
terrible at hitting," or I'm and
yeah.
instead, they'll say the verb and then awful, right? "I cook
Yes.
awful. I
Eh,
hit awful." And they're because it would feel strange to take that word and then add another syllable because it's almost easier to emphasize it when it's only 2 syllables. Awful.
yeah. Yeah, I do agree that awfully just sounds a little awkward to
Gosh.
say, so I would probably entirely reword,
Yeah.
the sentence. "I'm
How would you say
terrible
that
at
sentence,
hitting. I
Lindsay?
I am just awful." Well, let's see, I might say, "I'm just
Mm,
awful at hitting." I would use it
yeah.
in a different part of the
And
sentence.
that is grammatical because there you're using it
Yeah.
as an adjective, right?
Right.
I am
Mhm.
awful at hitting. I am awful
Mhm.
at playing tennis.
Mhm.
That is correct grammar because that is the adjective form, which is the same as a flat adverb.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Wow, we're coming up with some good stuff today.
really
Okay,
interesting.
Aubrey, what else? Oh
The
gosh,
next
this
one
one's
where
just
you
as cringy
cringe
for
on
me,
the
just as
YouTube
cringy.
video, I play terrible. This is one I heard a friend just say yesterday, and she is well educated. She is right, but it was informal
Really?
speech, just a chat
Interesting.
between friends, very
Yeah.
common, at least in the West.
Wow. In I would say the countryside West, right? So
I mean,
if
we're
you're
in Phoenix. It's not
right.
countryside, it's tricky.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
she's from Phoenix, she's or I'm not positive,
Hmm.
but it's interesting. It really I know having grown up in the Northeast, you're sort of feeling like, "Oh, in cities you wouldn't speak like that," but that's not the case. If
Mm-mm.
someone grew up where this was common in their regional dialect, in an informal conversation among friends, they would still say this.
If
Yeah.
the others were saying it right. If other the
Exactly.
key is where is everyone else around you
Exactly.
from,
It
right?
reminds me a
So
lot of good versus well. We talk about this
mhm.
sometimes. A lot of people are gonna say, "I'm good," when really grammatically you should say, "I'm well,"
Mhm.
but you would feel comfortable with that because in your region, even though it's a grammar error, it's so common, it's so accepted, you would maybe say, "I'm good," and feel okay with it.
Yeah.
That is the same for people with terrible and awful. It's very
Yeah.
equivalent.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I think
Interesting.
in places like New York or let's say Los Angeles or San Francisco or DC, I think regional dialects get watered down because you're not really going to be around people from where you come from, right? You're going to be around people from all over the world and the country.
Yes, and
So,
I, having grown up where this was common, but now recognizing it as ungrammatical, I often won't do it even if I'm around someone who might, right?
okay,
Because
interesting.
I am a little more like you where I hear
Mm.
I'm like, "Ooh," I'm
Ouch.
I'm not as used to it now.
Prickly.
So
Yes.
it is interesting how that does evolve as you aren't hearing it as often.
Interesting. Okay. So, did we do the terrible one? Yes, we did the terrible and
Yeah,
then
so then
easy.
easy, right? I'll
Yes.
hit pitches there easy. And this is
Yeah.
similar to awful, where you're going to be hitting it. It would be strange to say, I'll hit pitches there easy. If so, maybe you would say easily when you are emphasizing that. I'll hit
Yeah.
pitches there easy.
Yeah.
That's when we would use that flat adverb.
Interesting. This one's a little more palatable, still not perfect, like super palatable, but it's a little more palatable for me. Next one, well, I should go. I got there late last time and they were closed. Now, obviously, this one is 100% palatable,
Yeah,
right?
because this is a flat adverb that is grammatical. The word late, we don't
Hmm.
add an ly when we're using it as an adverb. When we mean that we got there not early, the opposite of early. I got there late last time, right? If you say lately, that has a totally different meaning. So in this case, correct grammar is a flat adverb. I got there late.
Love that. Now, I am actually really interested to see what we've got on the Business English podcast for our part two of this episode. So
Yes,
what are
this
the
is going to be
yeah.
great. There are expressions that have flat adverbs, like, for example, take it easy. We talked about aim high, dress smart, that are used
Mhm.
often at work and in daily conversations. So be sure you're
Excellent.
following the Business English podcast. We're going
Yep.
to do part 2 over there.
Yep, sometime in the next couple of weeks. All right, good.
Absolutely.
Okay, Aubrey, what's a takeaway? We had a lot of thoughts today. A lot, a
Yes.
lot of thoughts.
This is really interesting, right? Even native speakers make mistakes with flat adverbs, either intentionally or unintentionally. So definitely don't stress about these in conversations,
Hmm.
right? If you do want to be grammatical, you want to make sure you're speaking correctly,
Hmm.
then you will use the correct version of these adverbs. But definitely something to not stress about because even native speakers do this.
Yeah, and a chance for reflection. I mean, how do you want to be? Do you want to be flexible with your language depending on who you're around? Is that a key tool for connection? Sometimes it actually
Right.
is, and that's what you're getting at, Aubrey.
Yeah.
Or do you want to be adhering to a style of your own speaking that you've developed that's maybe a hybrid of all the places you've lived? We have a chance to kind
Absolutely.
of reinvent ourselves with the words we use, which is
Yeah.
so cool.
Absolutely, but of course, for formal writing in an
Oh,
interview,
yeah. No,
these are
no, no, no,
mistakes
no.
you would not make because that person giving that interview might care about grammar. They might be like Lindsay, cringing if they hear some of these, so you would definitely want to up-level your grammar, up-level your
Yes.
vocabulary in those situations.
Yeah, because I think when people hear grammar mistakes, they make assumptions about intelligence, about competence,
It
right?
does happen, right? And you
Professionalism,
want to
for
avoid
sure.
that in those types of
Mhm.
situations.
Yes.
Mhm.
So, guys, if you wanna see me cringing, come on over to YouTube.
Yes, that was
All
really
right,
funny.
good stuff. All right, Aubrey, I'll see you back here very soon. Have a good one.
See you next time.
All right, bye.
Bye.